Dear Presidents Hubert and Hirschi, dear organizers Steffi and Marcel, dear colleague from the Bavarian government, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm very sorry. It will be much less nice to speak about politics than to hear the very harmonious yodeler from the Bavarian Alps, but that is how it is. But I am personally very glad to be back in DLD, because this very special place, since its foundation in 2005, has brought together people from business, technology, media, politics, to have a dream and to put a dream into reality. And then us politicians, Minister, to accompany these dreams and this putting into reality so that they can fly. Because the transformation of our society due to the new technology asks for a special political contribution, a contribution with the European Commission. You know, the European Commission is something like the government for the 500 million of Europeans, which the European Commission is about to present in the next coming days. Rules that reform the common existing rules on the free movement of personal data in Europe's single market, and add to this the best possible protection of such data in the digital age. I know this is not the place to speak about rules, because in your mentality, most of all in the mentality of the startup, the less rules there are, the better it is. But we do have a societal responsibility. And what I have noticed here in Europe, that we have too many rules, too many conflicting rules. And this cacophonia, not like the yodeler, leads to a lot of problems. And these problems need to be eliminated. So the conflicting rules need to be put into context. One rule for the whole Europe instead of 27 rules which go one against the others. All the technological developments which you put in place are welcome drivers of innovation, growth, and job creation, and we have to leave you to be innovators, growth creators, and job creators. However, these new technologies also bring about new regulatory challenges. You know that the internet, cloud computing, mobile devices now allow us to access our data everywhere at any time. The data races from Munich to Hong Kong and to Miami in fractions of seconds, and we leave digital traces every moment, everywhere. Now you ask yourself, does this matter? Do people really care about that their data is protected or not? Do our new rules need to be strengthened to give people more confidence and make it easier for business to operate in Europe's digital single market? The answer of our citizens is very simple. Yes, in Europe, people do care. 72% of Europeans said in a recent poll that they are very much concerned about how companies use their personal data. In Germany, it's even 81% of the population. Now, people, citizens are worried. Businesses are worried too. Is their data secure in the cloud? Why do they need to face outdated rules, apply 27 conflicting regulations if they want to work on the whole of the European market? Why can't they get legal certainty when making the 500 million European citizens their potential customers? Now we need to take those worries serious. We need to give answers to those citizens and businesses, and the current EU data protection laws, which date from 1995 in pre-internet times, simply are not up to date anymore. In 1995, only 1% of all telecommunicated information was carried by the internet. Today it is 97%. So things have changed since the moment we have made our basic laws, it's high time that we review them. You know that personal data is a currency of today's digital market. And like any currency, it needs stability and trust. Only if the consumers can trust that their data is well protected, they will continue to entrust businesses and authorities with it, buy online, accept new services. And those are the services you invent, you propose, you make to work. So we need reliable, consistent rules that make data processing safer, cheaper, and inspire consumers' confidence. How do we do that? Can we be sure that the rules we make today will fit tomorrow? Well, Hubert, I have come to this place here since 2005, and I have learned a lot. And I have certainly learned one thing. You never know what these brilliant guys and girls invent for tomorrow. So you cannot build rules which will be so rigid that they cannot fit tomorrow's world. We have to have rules which are future-proof, which are technology neutral, and we have most of all to build on privacy by design, which has to become a standard. It is necessary to eliminate the current barriers in our internal market and to allow inventors to move forward with ideas and seize opportunities. We have to eliminate the distrust in our citizens. And that is why, in the next days, we are going to change the laws. I will start out briefly describing where we are today and where the reform will bring us in order to reduce the burdens on companies and to better protect citizens. Currently here in Europe, we have a real patchwork of data protection laws. Companies who want to utilize the whole of the 500 million digital market have to deal with 27 often conflicting data protection laws and with data protection authorities that apply them in a different way. This legal uncertainty and these fragmentations is a real financial and time-consuming burden, most of all for startups and most of all for SMEs. The extra cost for businesses of the fragmentation is 2.3 billion euros a year. Now we cannot afford to lose these 2.3 billion euros a year. In addition, companies very often are burdened with red tape, cumbersome, costly notification requirements for processing data. And are they efficient? They are inefficient for the companies, and they even do not bring trust to the consumers. So they are completely useless. Alone the cost of those are 130 million a year. This needs to be changed, and to address these changes, I propose a comprehensive reform of the data protection rules with two legislative texts. The first, a regulation. A regulation is a directly and evenly applicable rule for 27 member states to enhance the opportunities for businesses and the protection for individuals. And second, a directive, which has first to be translated into national law in order to ensure a smoother exchange of information between member states' police and judicial authorities in the fight against terrorism and serious crime, while in the same time protecting people's fundamental rights to data protection. The new rules are meant to help businesses in three ways. First, create a legal certainty. Second, simplify the regulatory environment. And third, provide clear rules for international data transfers. So, the first point, legal certainty. I told you already about the 27 different rules applied in a different way, interpreted in a different way. This patchwork will be replaced by one law, which will apply to all member states, to all companies which are offering their goods and services to consumers, even if their servers are based outside of the European Union. The directly regulated regulation will create a strong, clear, uniform legislative framework that will unleash the potential of the digital single market, will do away with the fragmentation, and will bring these 2.3 billion euros back to the businesses and to the people. The savings will be achieved by a series of measures, simplifying the regulatory environment, drastically cutting red tape, no more general notification requirements. Instead, companies across Europe will be themselves responsible and accountable for the protection of personal data in their business field. They will appoint a data protection officer, a requirement that businesses here in Germany, by the way, already are very familiar with. Only the scrapping of general notification rule brings, as I have said, 130 million euros a year more in the companies. Secondly, there will be a regulatory one-stop shop for all data protection matters. A company will have to comply with one law for the whole of the EU territory. It will have to deal with one single data protection authority, the authority of the member state in which the company has its main establishment. And it will not matter anymore which data protection authority deals with a case, because all data protection authorities, wherever they are, in whatever EU country they are, will have the same adequate tools and powers to enforce EU law. They should be able to deal with complaints, carry out investigations, take binding decisions, and, if necessary, impose effective and dissuasive sanctions. This will give the legislation teeth so that the rules will be properly enforced. Data protection authorities have to be independent from political and from economic interest. They will need to have enough resources to do their job, and they will need to work closely together so that they can consistently enforce the rules wherever in Europe these rules need to be insisted. The third element, the rules for international data transfer. In a world where the free movement of data is fundamental to businesses, where physical boundaries have become meaningless, we need to rethink the way we transfer data and the rules we have put already in our lawmaking on these data transfers. To me, it seems odd that data held by a European company is adequately protected inside the borders of the European Union, but not when it is transferred to a different part of the same company on another continent. I therefore want to improve the current system of binding corporate rules to make these exchanges less burdensome, more secure. I will propose a consistent and streamlined approving process with a single point of contact for companies, and once some binding corporate rules are approved by one data protection authority, they will be taken into consideration by all data protection authorities wherever they are. There should be no further need for additional national authorization in case of further transfers. As a result, the companies will be capable to sell goods and services under the same data protection rules to 500 million people. I believe a very interesting business opportunity. That is what Europe is going to do in order to boost the digital single market. That is what Europe is going to do in order to work towards global standards. But you, businesses, handling personal data, will have a very crucial role to play so that this flies. If we want altogether to give a real meaning to the fundamental right to the protection of personal data, and that is inscribed in the European treaties, so it is not an if or a when, it is a must, then we need individuals to be in control of their information, and then we need the business responsibility to come in. And I believe it is a very good business model to show that you respect customers' privacy and build up trust so that people feel secure when they are sharing their personal information with your platform, with your services. And here transparency is the name of the game. People need to be informed about the processing of their data in a simple, clear language they can understand. Internet users must be told which data is collected, for what purpose, how long, and how it will be stored. They need to know how it might be used by third parties. They must know their rights and to whom they can address themselves if they think their rights have been violated. People need to make informed decisions about what to disclose, when, and to whom. We politicians do not want to replace the decision of an adult citizen, but we want to give to this adult citizen a choice. Second, whenever users give their agreement to the processing of their data, this has to be meaningful. People's consent needs to be specific and explicitly. And third, the reform will give individuals better control over and easier access to their own data. People must be able easily to get access or to take their data back and give it to another provider. By the way, as a commissioner for telecoms, I had done this in the telecom world, doing exactly the same now, data portability in the internet world. And this brings me then directly to the point which is so consistently discussed in the general public, the right to be forgotten. Here I think I need to give some clarification because the interpretation of this right to be forgotten goes everywhere and nowhere. What is the right to be forgotten? Not only the possibility, but the right. It is the right for an individual to withdraw the consent to the processing of the personal data they have given out themselves. They have given out themselves is an important sentence. You know that the internet has almost unlimited search and memory capacity, so even tiny scraps of personal information can have a huge impact even years after they are shared and made public. So this right to be forgotten isn't new. It builds on existing laws. It is a way to better cope with privacy risks online. It is the individual who should be in the best position to protect the privacy of their own data, choosing of where, yes or not, to provide it. And the citizen has to be empowered, I'm speaking mostly about children and young teenagers, to be in control of what they put online. And by the way, as I said already, 81% of the adult citizens here in this country are very worried to what happens to their personal data and to the data of their children. So even the individual no longer wants this data to be online, well, it is, if there is no legitimate reason to keep it online, the data should then be removed from the system. Like many rights, the right to be forgotten is not an absolute one. There is no absolute right. There are cases where there is a legitimate, legally justified interest to keep the data in the database. I'm looking at you, Hubert. The archives of a newspaper are a good example to this. It is clear that the right to be forgotten cannot amount to a right of the total erasure of history. Neither must the right to be forgotten take precedence over freedom of expression or freedom of the media. The new EU rules will include explicit provisions that ensure that the respect of the freedom of expression and information is preserved. After all, I have been a media commissioner for 10 years now, and I will never compromise in the fight for fundamental rights to freedom of expression and freedom of the media, equally important than the fundamental rights to data protection. Finally, individuals must be swiftly informed when their personal data is lost, stolen, or hacked. Whether user data gets stolen from an online gambling service, a credit card details are hacked from a website, these security breaches affect millions of users. And you know from the recent stories that these very serious data breach incidents have happened and people have not been informed. Well, first, the companies need to reinforce the security of the information they hold. And then when this information is given out, taken out, stolen, there has to be a general obligation for data controllers to notify data breaches very quickly to authorities and individuals. I have written in the law without undue delay. For me, without undue delay means within 24 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, we will get a strong, consistent, future-proof framework for data protection, applied consistently across a continent of 500 million citizens, one which is fit for the digital age so that it can leave innovation free, leave development grow, and help citizens to feel secure. We will adjust the rules to the reality of multinational business. We will adjust the rules to the reality of people's life, because Europeans live, work, travel anywhere in Europe, and their data must live, work, and travel also anywhere in Europe, freely and safely. And I do believe that if we get this right, and if you get this right in your companies, that will be a golden opportunity for businesses, because complying with those laws on data protection will lead to a competitive advantage, to a real trademark worldwide of trust and of development. Actually, I wanted to stop here in my intervention, but recent developments make me to add some more sentences. Since some time, there is a heated debate about the freedom of internet. According to the European Fundamental Rights Charter, the freedom of expression and of information is a basic right for every one of our European citizens. And this is directly linked to the freedom of internet, which has thus to be preserved. But those are not the only freedoms. I told you already that sometimes you have to balance freedoms so that they can work together. The right of the creator to the content and the fruits of his creations are equally important. This right also has to be preserved. And in order to achieve this, the European policy aims at equilibrating the respects of both rights. Freedom of information and copyright must not be enemies, they are partners. And the protection of creators must never be used as a pretext to intervene in the freedom of the internet. That is why you will never get out of Europe a blocking of the internet. That's not a European option.